Ring, ring. The phone buzzed. Alexander Hartwell glanced at his BlackBerry, frowning at the unknown number. He'd been reviewing quarterly reports in his penthouse office, the Chicago skyline glittering beyond floor-to-ceiling windows. Hello. His voice carried the crisp authority of a man worth $3 billion. Silence. Then, sniffling. Please help me, whispered a tiny voice, shaking with terror. My Lily is dying, and I don't know what to do. Alexander's fork paused halfway to his mouth, the perfectly seared salmon forgotten. Something in that voice, so small, so desperate, made his chest tighten. Who is this? He asked gently, setting down his wine glass. I'm Savannah, the voice trembled. I called 911 but the numbers got mixed up on Daddy's old phone. Please, mister, she's really sick and won't wake up. Alexander stood abruptly, his chair scraping against marble floors. The sound echoed through his empty penthouse, a stark reminder of how alone he was despite all his wealth. Savannah, honey, where are you? Are your parents home? Daddy's at work, she sobbed, her voice growing smaller with each word. Mommy went to heaven last year. It's just me and Lily, and she won't open her eyes. I tried giving her water, but she won't drink it. His heart hammered. This wasn't a prank. The raw panic in her voice was too real, too heartbreaking. What's your address, sweetheart? 847 Pinecrest Drive in Riverside. But mister, I think she's really dying. Alexander was already grabbing his keys, his expensive Italian leather shoes clicking against the marble as he moved with purpose. His personal assistant would have handled this differently, would have called the proper authorities. But something about this little girl's voice bypassed all his usual protocols. Riverside, 40 minutes away through traffic. His driver would take too long. Listen to me carefully, Savannah. I'm coming to help you, okay? Can you tell me about Lily? Is she your sister? She's my best friend, Savannah whispered. She's been sick for days, and today she just collapsed. Racing through Chicago streets in his Mercedes, Alexander's mind spun with questions. The city blurred past, glittering towers giving way to modest neighborhoods, each mile taking him further from his world of boardrooms and into something raw and real. Why hadn't the father taken the child to a hospital? Why was a little girl home alone with a dying friend? The dashboard clock glowed 8:47 p.m. 28 minutes later, he pulled into a run-down neighborhood where paint peeled from weathered houses. Number 847 stood at the end, a small ranch with a sagging porch and overgrown yard. Alexander knocked softly. Savannah. It's the man from the phone. The door cracked open, revealing the most beautiful blue eyes he'd ever seen, eyes that held too much sadness for someone so young. The little girl couldn't be more than 7, wearing faded pajamas with unicorns that had probably once been bright pink but were now washed to pale rose. Tears streaked her pale cheeks, and she clutched a small stuffed elephant to her chest. You really came, she whispered. Of course I did. Where's Lily? Savannah led him inside, her small bare feet making no sound on the worn hardwood floors. The house was modest but clean, filled with hammer-down furniture and family photos that told a story of happier times. Alexander noticed the frames were dust-free. Someone still cared for these memories. In the living room corner sat a makeshift bed of blankets, soft and carefully arranged. And there was Lily. Alexander's breath caught. She was tiny, a white rabbit with matted fur, barely breathing. Her little chest rose and fell in labored gasps. Oh, sweetheart, he knelt beside Savannah. Lily's your pet rabbit. She's more than that, Savannah said fiercely, her voice gaining strength for the first time since the phone call. When Mommy died, Daddy got her for me so I wouldn't be so lonely. She sleeps with me every night and knows all my secrets. She listens when I'm scared about the dark or when I miss Mommy. She's all I have left that understands. Alexander felt something crack inside his chest. Here was this little girl, alone and terrified, calling a stranger because she had nowhere else to turn. Let's get Lily to a veterinarian right now. Savannah's eyes widened. But But Daddy says we don't have money for animal doctors. Don't worry about that. The emergency vet clinic was across town, a modern building that stayed open 24 hours for exactly these kinds of crises. Dr. Patricia Reeves, a kind woman in her 40s with gentle hands and tired eyes, examined Lily with the same careful attention she'd give a human patient. Savannah clutched Alexander's sleeve so tightly he could feel her trembling through the fabric. She has a severe respiratory infection, Dr. Reeves explained quietly. It's advanced, but treatable. She'll need antibiotics, fluids, and monitoring for several days. Whatever she needs, Alexander said without hesitation. As they waited, Savannah told him everything. Her mother, Rebecca, had died in a car accident the previous winter. Her father, Marcus, worked double shifts at the steel mill, leaving before dawn and returning after midnight. Daddy cries sometimes, she whispered, picking at a loose thread on her pajama sleeve. He thinks I don't hear when he's in the kitchen late at night, but I do. He says money's really tight since Mommy's medical bills came, and the house payment, and everything. Sometimes he doesn't eat dinner, so there's more for me. Alexander's throat tightened as the full picture emerged. This family had been through hell, drowning in medical debt and grief, and now this little girl's last source of comfort was slipping away. He thought of his own penthouse, his wine collection worth more than most people's yearly salary, his closet full of suits that cost thousands each. The contrast felt obscene. Hours passed. Dr. Reeves emerged with cautious optimism. Lily's responding to treatment. She should make a full recovery. Savannah's sob of relief echoed through the waiting room. But as they prepared to leave, Alexander noticed Savannah's steps were unsteady, her usual childhood energy completely drained. She stumbled slightly against the clinic's automatic doors, catching herself against his arm with a grip that felt alarmingly weak. "Sweetheart, when did you last eat?" Yesterday, I think. There's not much food left, and I was too worried about Lily." The pieces clicked together with horrifying clarity. This wasn't just about a sick rabbit. This was about a 7-year-old girl, home alone for days, slowly starving while caring for her dying pet. Alexander bought groceries, real food, not just the cheapest options, and insisted on staying until Marcus returned home. He helped Savannah heat soup, watching as she ate slowly, methodically, like someone who'd learned to make food last. At 11:47 p.m., they heard a truck rumble into the driveway, its engine coughing like it needed repairs Marcus couldn't afford. Marcus Kellaway was a big man, broad-shouldered from years of manual labor, but grief had hollowed him out. His clothes were stained with steel dust, his hands calloused and cut, his face lined with exhaustion that went bone deep. He froze seeing Alexander in his living room, this stranger in an expensive suit sitting where Rebecca used to read bedtime stories. "Who are you? Where's Savannah?" "Daddy." Savannah ran to him, still in her unicorn pajamas. "This is Mr. Alexander. He saved Lily." The story poured out, the wrong number, the desperate call, the rush to save her rabbit. Marcus's face cycled through confusion, embarrassment, and overwhelming gratitude. "Sir, I don't know how to thank you. The vet bills alone." "Already handled," Alexander said. "But Marcus, we need to talk." They spoke quietly in the kitchen while Savannah slept with Lily, now breathing normally, curled in her arms like they'd done countless nights before. The kitchen table was scarred from years of family meals, homework sessions, and late-night worry. Empty prescription bottles lined the windowsill, remnants of Rebecca's final battle. "I've been doing my best," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "Since Rebecca died, everything's been. I work 2 jobs, but the medical debt, the mortgage. I thought Savannah would be safe for a few days with Mrs. Henderson checking on her, but she got sick too." "You're a good father in an impossible situation," Alexander said gently. "But what if I could help? My foundation supports families in crisis. We could." The phone rang. Marcus glanced at the caller ID and paled. "It's Children's Services," he whispered. "Someone must have. They're coming tomorrow for a welfare check." Alexander felt ice in his veins. If they found evidence of neglect, a child left alone, no food in the house, they might remove Savannah from her father's care. "We'll figure this out," Alexander promised. I'll be here tomorrow." But fate had other plans. The next morning, Alexander arrived to find emergency vehicles lining Pinecrest Drive like a nightmare parade. His heart stopped as he saw the ambulance, its red lights painting the modest houses in colors of crisis. Neighbors stood in clusters on their porches, whispering and shaking their heads. Mrs. Patterson from next door was crying into her hands. Dr. Reeves met him at the door, her face grave. "Mr. Hartwell, there's been a tragic mistake." The words hit like physical blows. In the rush to save Lily, they'd missed something crucial. Savannah hadn't just been hungry, she'd been sick too, likely from the same virus that nearly killed her rabbit. Her little body, already weakened from days without proper food, couldn't fight the infection. She'd collapsed in the night. Marcus found her unresponsive at dawn. "We did everything we could," Dr. Reeves said softly. "But her immune system was too compromised. If we'd caught it earlier, if she'd been properly nourished." Alexander staggered, the words echoing in his skull. If only he'd insisted on taking her to a doctor. If only he'd recognized the signs. If only he'd done more. In the hospital corridor, Marcus sat hunched in a plastic chair, his massive frame somehow diminished, his world shattered twice over. The man who'd worked himself to exhaustion trying to provide for his daughter now faced the unthinkable. His work boots were still covered in steel dust. He'd come straight from the night shift to find his daughter unconscious. "She kept asking for Lily," Marcus whispered, tears streaming down his weathered face. "Even at the end, she was worried about that damn rabbit." Alexander knelt beside him, his $3 billion empire meaningless in the face of this devastating loss. All his wealth, all his power, and he couldn't save one small girl who'd trusted him enough to call when she had nowhere else to turn. The funeral was small but heartbreaking. Savannah's teacher came, along with neighbors who'd watched her grow up, and a few of Marcus's co-workers who'd taken time off to support him. Lily, now fully recovered thanks to the little girl who'd saved her, sat in her carrier beside the tiny casket, as if keeping vigil for the child who'd loved her more than anything in the world. 6 months later, Alexander still couldn't sleep. He'd established the Savannah Kellaway Foundation, helping families in crisis avoid the tragedy that befell hers. But nothing filled the hole left by a 7-year-old girl who'd called the wrong number and changed everything. Marcus had kept Lily, finding small comfort in caring for his daughter's beloved pet. Sometimes he'd call Alexander, just to talk about Savannah, to keep her memory alive. And Alexander would listen, carrying the weight of what ifs and if onlys, knowing that sometimes even billionaires are powerless against the cruel mathematics of fate. He'd moved to a smaller apartment, sold most of his luxury possessions. The money went to the foundation, but the guilt remained, sharp and unforgiving as winter wind. The wrong number had brought them together. But it came one day too late to save the little girl who'd called him when she had nowhere else to turn.